strictly focusing on.
With your permission, we will have a meeting of the Public Works Zoning Committee. Those present of the committee are Mr. Johnson and myself. Mr. Lawson is in absentia, and I have my colleague next to me. The main function thrust of today's meeting is to have an update on the fast-track projects, and after the comments by Mr. Wilkinson, if you have any questions, you may direct them to him, and we'll also tell you why we're keeping this on, because we don't want to become a slow track. We must continue to resume the fast track status. Michael, do you want to bring us up to speed?
Good afternoon. I don't know if everybody can hear me. We had the latest fast track status report. I need to correct the date up top, but I have some items of interest. One is Versailles Extension Package 2 Roadway and Drainage. We're looking at advertising that project in mid-March for construction for the roadway package. The roadway package 3, we've met with DOTD and had a corridor study. We have a proposal from Meyer & Meyer for that. We're negotiating that agreement as we speak right now. We've also acquired one of the 2 remaining parcels. The owner has agreed to the offer. The second parcel we were remaining, we're turning it over to the city attorney to be in expropriations of that parcel. Fast track item number 5, Hyman Lane. As you know, we're near completion on that roadway. Still looking at mid-March completion for the entire project. Item number 7, we're looking at bidding North Mall Drive roadway improvements from Broadway through to the Walmart. It includes a 5-laning of the roadway. Item number 8, we execute the agreement for the 3 spray pads throughout the city, the 3 parks, and Lisa Harris received a request for qualifications for the city or the recreational master plan. I think we're going to selection committee on that one pretty soon. Next item of interest, Elizabeth Street. We're very near to completion.
Which one are you on now?
Number 18.
18?
Yes, sir. We're very near the end of the drainage work on that project. The next item is 28, the multi-use pedestrian bicycle trail. We required the final servitudes through that project. It's being funded through DOTD, and it's on the April letting schedule.
What will our out-of-pocket expense be on that?
I think it's funded entirely through DOTD urban systems improvements.
Percentage-wise, what's our contribution?
I don't think we have any. I think it's 100% through the state funding. I'll have to double check that one, sir.
Yes. Excuse me. Michael, the bicycle, he's talking about the bicycle trail along
That one is running from where the existing trail ends, runs past, behind, was it TXI?
TXI site, yeah.
TXI through that site.
All the way over to tying into where the trail stops now at Enterprise Road.
Right.
Not Enterprise, yeah, North 16th actually.
Isn't that the Lewis Marshall's district?
Yes, sir.
If he doesn't get that, he won't run. No comment. Next, go ahead.
And we complete the St. Andrews on the Links Finch project. We did a final inspection on it yesterday. There are a few punch list items, but they're mostly complete with it. And also item number 39, the Bayou Roberts landmark, phase 6, the overflow structure. We're going to request the permission to bid that in mid-March. So in summary, we have 15 projects under design, 4 are currently delayed, 8 are under construction, 11 are complete, and 4 are pending A&E selection.
For the delayed, is that measurable or not?
To some extent, they're mostly the projects that are put underneath the TIP funding with the state, the urban systems, which that program, we have to share that money with Pineville and the parish, and they're getting a lion's share for the next 4 years. But we are pursuing other options for funding with those programs.
All right.
So,
Question, all right.
Sugar House Road.
You just addressed that, didn't
that is one of the TIP projects. We're looking at putting the right-of-way acquisition, which is about $900,000 underneath the TIP funding. And as soon as we get that as FY fiscal year 11-12, which is about 3 years out. So,
I have a question, but it's not on fast track sheet. On the ditch closure projects, we need an update on that because the one I'm speaking about is over there, Crestwood and Sally.
yes,
Sally
sir.
Street, yeah.
Yeah.
And we were waiting on the state on something on their part, and I don't know where we are.
Yeah, the outfall for that design goes underneath the service road there next to the South Circle tractor sales and
Right.
Del Percatas. We just put in a permit yesterday with them. It should be approved, no problems, because we have to cut the road, put in some new pipe. They're satisfied. We met all their criteria, so it's just a matter of getting it back from them, and we'll ready to start the
Keys,
project.
Yeah. Yeah, then the other one was Keys Street, I think. We had Keys and we had
Keys,
Baldwin, I think, Baldwin.
Baldwin. I'm not familiar. Oh, we had Linda Street coming up
Yeah,
also.
it wasn't on the original, but they were added to that. I think
Okay.
Pan American, Tommy, he added those in. It was Keys, it should have been Keys, that's off Lee Street Extension, and
Yes, sir.
Baldwin.
Okay, I'll follow up with John Gagnard, he's the Pan American engineer, and see where we're at with those.
Okay.
I think we may have
Yeah.
some estimates on those.
But on the other streets, you would be able to go it on, probably get started?
Yes, sir. They're putting together the work order tasks right now.
Oh,
We'll-
okay.
Well, as soon as we get them in, we'll review them, approve them if they're, if
Okay.
need to be, and get to work.
you have any comment on the,
But check on the other,
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
any questions or anything else from the audience? Kay, I thought that Ken Jr. would be here, but he must be out in the hallway doing something. I would appreciate it very much. The main reason we're trying to do this every other week is to bring everybody up to speed as to what we're attempting to do and keep it on track. I would sincerely appreciate it if the administration through Ken Jr. can maybe perhaps have some of this stuff replicated in the paper or on television, or here he is. I'd like to say that it's a concerted effort of both the administration and the council to keep everyone posted abreast of this fast track so that we can maintain a certain speed, because this is one thing that we're working together. It's a tremendous deal, and if we can accomplish this, then no saying how much more stuff can be done. So I would appreciate if you'll take this and put as much of it as you can in the public's hands. Thank you. Anything else, Michael? You want to-
From two-lane to Sugar House Road.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't in here on that.
Lincoln,
You
yes,
don't
sir.
have any designs or
Yes, sir.
anything yet?
Yeah, we have
I
a,
could get a copy of it.
yes, sir, we did a program completion. In fact, I met with Mr. David this morning, and we discussed the project. There are some issues with that. The city ordinance, talk about the floodplain elevation, the elevation of roadway in comparison. We're right at that make or break, so we may have to look at what we can do to address that issue. Maybe apply for a variance or increase the cost of construction to build the roadway up. There are some issues that we have to tackle. One of them was budgeting. They didn't have enough funding in there for the engineering, so it kind of got put on hold until this last budget amendment. So,
Was that, got into designs yet?
yes, sir, we do have preliminary plans. I can give you a call and we can meet and go over it. So,
No, that's that.
And I have one other. What is Horseshoe Drive, the little short Horseshoe Drive?
Yes, sir, from MacArthur to Grove.
Grove, right?
Yes, sir.
I didn't see it in here, that's why I was just wondering.
Yeah, it's not one of our top 40s, so I can maybe.
I know they did the original survey and all
Yes, sir.
that. And,
Yes, we complete the program package. We should be good to go. We sent them some comments on what we intend for the design. It's just a matter of getting the preliminary plans in. We'll conduct a review, have a plan in hand shortly thereafter. Probably looking at, I would say, the mid-April, getting those plans in.
Thank you. James Branch, you have anything to add to it?
No, sir, sounds good. If you got questions,
Anyone have any other questions? If not,
we'll have money.
I don't want to hear that. I've done that for years. If not, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.
see here. Good afternoon. I would like to call to order the Public Safety and Transportation Committee meeting to order at this time. President is myself. On the committee, Mr. Silver, other members of the council, Mr. Hobbs, Mr. Smith, administration. Item number 1 is to hear from an administration concerning crime prevention, and also to hear from the administration concerning police overtime and recruitment. At this time, I would like the chief to come forward at this time.
There's a number of things that the police department does as far as crime prevention is concerned. I've got a list here, and I'll read it to you, starting off with some of the things we do in an organized way. Of course, we have 11 active neighborhood watch groups, which Sergeant Peace uses every time there's a meeting practically. We have a Citizens Academy, which is open to the public for anyone 18 years of age and older. This helps promote a relationship between the police department and the community. We also have a teen academy. We also have a teen academy, which is open to young people between the ages of 13 to 19. This also helps foster a relationship between us and the community. We have the reverse 911 call-out system, which whenever there's a situation existing in a particular neighborhood, we can call everyone, reverse the calls, and send them back to them with information that they may need at the time. We do the crime prevention and safety talk. Sergeant Beeson does a number of those practically about 3 times a month with different groups that are civic groups in the city. We have the Guardian calling, which is checking on the elderly people. This is a free service and open to our senior citizens. Not a whole lot of them participate, but I wish they would. It would make a lot of difference in their lives. We offer tours to the public safety complex on a regular basis whenever a group wants to come in. A lot of the schools do that on occasion. And of course, we started the community policing, where right now we have 7 officers, and we're still trying to add 3 more to that particular thing. And we've instituted what we call a business watch group on Bolton Avenue. So there's a number of things that we continue to do as far as crime prevention, and of course, our regular patrol is on a daily basis, 24/7.
Chief, you know, over the last couple of months, especially by looking at the news and seeing what's taking place around the city with measures of crime and robberies, I must say, and burglaries, have crime increased? Are people taking advantage of what the police department is offering so far as what you just mentioned?
Well, we're not through completing our statistical information for 2007, but it looks like there'll be a slight reduction in overall crime for 2007 over 2006. The citizens, of course, we put out information. We try and keep them abreast of what's going on in the city, but a lot of our incidents that are happening in certain neighborhoods. It's not a widespread thing, and it's one of those things that we need citizens' input as well as police department participation. Without the help from the citizens, we're not going to ever resolve our issues that we have as far as crime is concerned. And it's like this in every major city in the United States and some of the medium-sized cities like Alexandria. We just had a spike in violent crime throughout the United States, and it's not unique to us. It feels like it is because it's so close to home. And I know we have a certain perception of fear of crime, and that's normal. Everybody should be concerned and worried about it. However, it's not as bad as it seems. The news media sometimes expounds a little bit extra on things that they report on, and it makes it look like it's a landslide of violent crime. However, that's not the case. I still think we're one of the safest cities to live in the United States, have been for many years and continue to be. But I'd like to see more involvement from the community in helping us solve some of these issues. On the Martin Luther King Day, we had a number of people here that were present, and one of our guest speakers made a lot of comments that pertain to the issues that we have in our community. And I wish that some of the people that are involved in leadership positions in these areas would step forward and help us work on these issues. And
hopefully that will help us in the long run if they start working on it now.
Any other questions on item number 1? If not, okay. Can you come forward to the podium? Please state your name, please, for the record.
Sandra Bright, Lower Third Neighborhood Watch. And as a member of a neighborhood group, and Sergeant Beeson, of course, comes to our meetings. One of the things that the neighborhood members are concerned about, and it has to do with the zoning of the police distribution. They have like 9 zones. They may have one person in that zone. We know that certain times of the day or night when you may have increased crime, and to have it stretched, because like maybe we're zone 3, Lower Third, okay, that's a big area to cover. If you have one car there, maybe somebody may have a hostage or standoff or whatever else, and you got to call for backup. That person may be in another zone. They have to leave that zone to come to, to assist this person. So even though certain areas of the city we know are high in crime, one of the things you maybe have to look at is maybe some type of interagency type thing. Now, I know we're not like Baltimore where they have a high crime rate, but when you have certain things that are going on, when you saturate an area for a period of time, just hit it real hard and things like that, then you may round up some of those people. Once you round the people up, what you gonna do with them? You're gonna keep them in jail, you let them out. If you let them out, they back on the street. So even if you're fighting crime, you pick them up, what you gonna do with them after you get them there? So we complain about the people that are dealing drugs before they can even get to the jailhouse. They are already back on the streets. So it makes us feel like that if we're gonna report the crime and the people are right back, it's defeating the purpose. So when you look at it, you look at that other end too. When you pick them up, because I know if I'm reporting something and when I look the person back out, I say, well, the police hadn't done anything because the man right here. So that's just some comments that to take into consideration about, having more policemen, certain areas, certain time of the day, it's high crime. And then when you do pick them up, you need to have some type of mechanism to keep these people off the street.
Chief, before Mrs. Smith will recognize you, can you respond to her question, then we'll recognize Mrs. Smith?
Thank you, Ms. Bright. And Ms. Bright makes some very valid points. And we do have extra officers that we put in these areas certain times of the day and the night. As you all know, we have what we call a street interdiction team, which concentrates on street corner drug dealers and places where we think the crime is getting a little bit out of hand. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about the next issue of overtime, which is one of the things we did back in the summer. We added additional patrols, and it worked for a period of time to stop what we were concentrating on, which was a lot of gang fights between children. And this is another issue that shouldn't even be a police thing. It should be a family thing that's taken care of in the community, but unfortunately, sometimes it falls in the hands of the police. But I agree with Ms. Bright. There needs to be something done as far as keeping these people locked up. Especially if they're convicted of the crime, you can't lock them up, keep them, put them away forever if they're not convicted. But sometimes they don't ever go back to trial, or they don't ever show up for trial, and they're back out there doing their same thing over and over again. One thing we're starting to add right now, Ms. Bright, is a warrant team that's going to be composed of our police department, the sheriff's department, several other departments, and the U.S. Marshals. We're going to start picking up people on outstanding warrants, in particular felony warrants. Hopefully we'll have some room in the jail for these people.
Okay. Mr. Smith?
Well, like I say this, that I think Mr. Hall and myself, and we had discussed this a with the mayor about concentrating, like we have a fire station, and, you know, about the council members with, I'm sorry, that council members, like in my area, if I got a certain target area, that, a certain target area, the amount that we have, like, crime elements in there, that if, we would notify, you know, the mayor or whatever office, and you all would concentrate in that area. We know we have zones, but we got certain areas in our district that constantly need patrol. You know, even like to the mall, when they out there snatching people's purses. I know we have zones, but we need somebody to concentrate in those zones. We had discussed this, we had kind of mentioned this to the mayor, that we would start, you know, we got to ride all over the city, but we really need to get into those areas that what Ms. Bryce and some of these other people are talking about. And deal with these undesirables. Some of these guys been to jail 14 and 15 times. That needs to be logged in, and whoever the judge or the DA or somebody needs to know that this guy been in and out of jail, what Ms. Bryce was talking about, that he's been in there 15 or 20 times. And he's just a habitual offender, you know, out there in the neighborhood. And that's what we're getting. But we were supposed to, after we got back, we was gonna talk with the mayor a little further, you know, and we were gonna get together and propose that we would really concentrate. You know, some of these areas that we don't, I mean, we can pass by it, but they don't have any crime. I know they like present, but we need to concentrate in those areas. And that's what we had talked about. You know, like the fire trucks in a mile and a half radius and that stuff. But if we got this crime in there, we need to concentrate in those areas.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Chief, thank you for item number 1. We can move on to item number 2, to hear from the administration concerning police overtime and recruitment.
I'll start off with this, and then Mr. Crutchfield needs to answer this question more so than I do, but I need to tell you one of the things that we've done, or a couple of the things that we've done. One I've mentioned already, and it was from the response from the community about these gang fights, that we added what we call a power shift, which was overtime. We couldn't staff it without putting guys on overtime. And we also have the park police, which was instituted because you asked for it. And we're only doing it 3 days a week, but that still translates in overtime. We also work all of our city facilities whenever there's any sort of event that's being presented. And officers on duty can't work that. We have to have officers who are off duty to work that. But there's a number of things that comes up at the end of each day. If we have to carry an officer over for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours sometimes because they're working on the case, that's overtime. I mean, there's a lot of issues dealing with overtime. Mr. Crutchfield can give you some more details.
I just wanted to give you guys some numbers. As the chief mentioned, there's a lot of things. I remember we started the park patrol, and then they have the power shift and all these extra details. There's also scheduled overtime in every shift because of the 12-hour shifts that the guys work. So some of the overtime numbers I'm going to give you are would be there regardless if you didn't have any other overtime besides the regular shift work. The overtime for the last, well, I'll start off by telling you our total payroll and benefits for the police department is about $12.5 million a year. So when I tell you the overtime numbers and they sound high, keep in mind the reference point being the fact that there's $12 million a year in payroll in the police department, payroll and benefits. For the last 3 years, the last 3 years, overtime has been $500,000, $1.1 million, and $970,000. So the last 2 years, it's been right around $1 million a year in overtime. And this year, with a major budget amendment that we hope to have approved in 2 weeks. We delayed it 2 weeks from approval tonight. The budgeted number would be 1.5 million for overtime in the police department. For this fiscal year that ends April 30th, '04.
What was it last year?
Last year was right at $1,970,000.
And I guess again, the increase was to basically what you stated, Chief, was the different shifts, changes that the police department made.
And we're still doing the park police.
There was an issue from neighborhood groups, I think, Chief, with people hanging out in the parks in the afternoons, on the weekends, and some fights and trouble of that nature. And so to address that, the chief implemented the park patrol, that we have additional officers that go to the parks, and I think it probably helped with that problem.
Before you discontinued the power shift,
We stopped it.
stop that.
We stopped it about 3 months ago.
I know Mr. Smith was trying to, kind of spell it out what we were talking about, but I think probably implementing that power shift in those areas and the basic areas that we're looking at this present is probably Westwood back up in there, Levin all back in, in Mr. Marshall's district. And, at this point, I mean, what I read in the paper, where the crime is at. Probably, if we probably need to implement the power shifts in if you got a certain crime in this area all the time, then maybe the power shift needs to get re-implemented for that particular zone or area.
Well, one thing we are doing is sometimes we have a couple extra officers on each shift, and we move them into those areas. They're in addition to the unit that's already working. We do that. And again, the street interdiction
Excuse me,
team-
Chief, can you step back up next to the podium? Thanks.
And again, the street interdiction team also concentrates on that area. And when we get calls from citizens about a certain area, we always put our street interdiction team in there. They're working from 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. On a 12-hour rotation business, 12-hour rotation shifts. And that is one of the things that we've concentrated on. I don't think that is as bad. I'll say that again. It sounds bad when you read it in the paper, but keep in mind that the Town Talk reports for Natchitoches, Leesville, Pineville, and all the other areas, and it almost sounds like it's all coming from Alexandria, but it's not all from Alexandria. But we're trying to concentrate on those areas, and we know where the problems are, so I think we're doing pretty good with that right now.
Do we implement the curfew?
The curfew is in effect, yeah.
Let me ask something, like Mr. Crutchfield. Now, in that overtime, I know we're talking about different, but doesn't that include all these other activities that they have?
Well,
I mean, Christmas, you didn't
yeah,
mention
the
anything.
Christmas
I mean, we
parade,
just-
the
I
QAnon
don't wanna get
parade, the Mardi Gras parade, all of that is, yeah, we have to staff that with overtime officers. There's a number of events that we have to provide police protection for. Every time one comes up that's sponsored by the city, we
Yeah,
have to be
I
there.
don't want the people to get the impression that you just all overtime, like on the crime. You got these other activities.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You got the fair, you got, all this other quality of life protection that
Yes, that's right. Anything that the city sponsors or the city's involved in, we have to protect it.
All right. Any other questions to come to the chief or Mr. Crutchfield? Mayor?
I just wanted to remind the council and the administration, for all of us to think about, I kind of think of it as 2 Bs, a break point and a baseline. When we were last looking at all this earlier in last year, Mr. Lawson had brought up on several occasions establishing a needs basis for how many police we should have. And I need to report to all of you that if you watch those numbers and see how they've come out in the last 3 years, Mr. Lawson has talked about this baseline notion, and that is what that study that this council authorized a few weeks back will do. We will finally be in a position to determine a baseline needs for what we really should be to run an efficient department in terms of employees. I think Chief Kuti has had to struggle with power shifts and different notions to be Band-Aids to get us by, and they are needed. And I know that Everett knows that they are needed, but there is some magic number, and this is the second B, Mr. Johnson, which is the break point. There is a break point number, not the baseline, but the break point where the cost to have overtime, power shifts, and other things exceeds what it would cost us to hire regular police who are all manning their positions and make for the most efficient use of the department. And we have struggled to find that number, and it's going to take this study and all of your help as you've been doing, and that's why this is a great discussion to do that. I don't think we know what that is. I think Myron was he pressed about the baseline, but Darren, as a chief, as you know, Mr. Johnson, he doesn't have the luxury of figuring that out while he's manning the zone. So what he has to do is think about, I've got to get this power shift. Those shifts are costing us a bunch of money, of course. We figured out a kind of a break point last year, and we ramped up from Darren's original request, if you all recall, a year and a half ago, of 15 officers. We put in 10, and we ramped down some of the power shifts and thought we had a magic number. Now, here's the point of all of what I'm telling you. Through attrition and other things, all these new officers that he just worked so hard to get, we've lost a ton of them. And I don't mean through attrition because things aren't working out the department or bad things. I'm talking about out of that new academy, all these guys we just brought on have all done other things and gone other places and done things. And that's why it's critical to get this contract that we're negotiating with the police to put us in the top to grab folks and get the baseline, the other B, in place. And I think that's a very fair and thorough assessment of where we are and the time frames within which you can expect some more definitive answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank the administration and chief for that report. If nothing else coming before this committee, thanks again, chief. This meeting is adjourned.
Of local business and government entities, including the Alexandria City Council. England Air Force Base was reborn in the 1990s as England Air Park.
I would like to call to order the Personnel Insurance Committee meeting to order at this time. President of the committee, myself, Mr. Steele, Mr. Hobbs, members of the administration. Item number 1 is to hear from the mayor concerning the status of the administrative reorganization and function. At this time, we'll hear from the mayor.
Yes, sir. We issued a letter, or I think the Chief of Operations, Ms. McGill's, issued some letters sometime back in 2007 to all division heads about the status of the administration and any reorganization or just the existing function. There were folks that received letters about reapplying for positions and that we were going to open up candidacy for a number of division heads. That process has been unfolding. There have been interviews occurring over the last few weeks or so, and we are just reassessing where we are as an administration after a year. It was something I said would happen in the first 6 months. After that 6 months' time, we began studying how the administration is organized and trying to figure out what needs we have. So at this time, I had asked Mr. Johnson in the break that maybe we would come back and talk about that. I think what prompted this on the agenda, if memory serves me, is that there was a letter that I issued on January 15. It says 2007. It should be 2008, where we sent a letter to Mr. Marshall discussing the Chief of Policy Planning and Cooperative Endeavor Monitor There was also Mr. Johnson, Chief of Development, listed in it, but that's not new. That was just a listing so that the council would have some measure of what that job entails, the scope of that position. So the new position was the Chief of Policy Planning and Cooperative Endeavor Monitor. It's not new in terms of line item. We had a line item that existed in the previous budget for the Recreation Director. This job would encompass that and then some, but it would create a position to aid in all recreation, especially that of a citywide nature. We will issue this when we have another discussion later so that the public can have a discussion with us in a meeting. This is, of course, is available, and we'll make this letter, we'll put it online if we get any requests to, so that people can read about it. But again, this position already exists in the budget. It creates no new line item for money, so it was not something that necessarily requires approval, other than I believe that we should always let you know what positions we have and what is going on. The major thing that was a change is we invited a member of the council to serve as a legislative services floor leader and senior advisor. Among the staff, we call it the commissioner for and to the administration, but it's a legislative floor leader. It would be a council member, and I will read that description because it's important and relevant to issues that we have today and here forward. And that is that this person would be a member of the city council and shall at all times act in the interest only in his or her best judgment for the city of Alexandria and the legislative body served, not the administration. This is a legislative position who would be helping us. This role would act as a liaison between and to the executive branch and legislative branch. This person shall not be paid as an employee of the administration, shall not act as an employee. The legislative floor leader would be requested to report to the mayor and COO as well as the council and faithfully exchange those ideas and policies that each body has so that we have a continuing liaison between the two bodies. The liaison would undertake efforts with administration officials and any other consultants working for the city and administered by the folks at the administrative level, including working directly with the Director of Planning and Chief of Operations, and those three persons, this legislative liaison, the Director of Planning, and the Chief of Operations, would act as the city's joint task force on capital project coordination and be responsible for the oversight, management, and development of large city projects to ensure that those projects stay within budget and timelines for completion. This is neither an appointment to a commission nor an administrative staff position. It's a privilege of the city council and office of the mayor to facilitate communication between the branches of government. In short, it's an attempt to work together and bring everybody to the table so that we have a constant floor leader in place to handle the administration's concerns outside of this formal process, which is the way we discuss things. This person will be able to go back and forth and say, here's what's going on. And so we think it's critical. We also had a letter that went out sometime after this one that discussed something that occurred. This letter was on January 18th, and I'm not going to read it. I'll make it available and put it in this record. But there was on the page too, I indicated proof is in the pudding. This letter is about how this collaboration has already worked to better the folks of Alexandria, in particular regard the person who has been serving as the legislative liaison, Mr. Charles Frederick Smith, has been able to secure some big changes in how we address problems with the Ruston Foundry. And because of that, I would encourage people to read this letter of January 18th and any of these letters about how this was created, including Mr. Smith's letter of January 15 to me, in which he accepted this position to do this, to push those marquee projects. I think it was needed. I think it's an example of moving outside of as structured as we've been in trying to bring folks together and loosen up some of that as long as we're all on the same page and communicating. I think you can relax some of those things that are very separate about the branches of government, and it helps. We talk about friction that occurs. The founders kind of intended there to be friction between and among branches of government. They wanted that. They thought it protected people. But too much friction, of course, can be bad. for groups, and so we're always looking for a balance. I think that in some small measure, Mr. Johnson, this helps to achieve a proper balance. And so we appreciate Lewis Marshall's participation in this and allowing some of these, I call it, I guess, an experiment to work and have these discussions. I've also sent several other letters to the council through Mr. Marshall, inviting the council to participate at certain times in our full staff meetings, to come and do presentations and have presentations made one at a time during regular staff meetings, which has never happened before. So we are trying to open up the doors to communication as much as we can, and we will continue to, and we will continue to be open to ideas and working together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Any questions to the mayor in regards to his report? Item number 2, to hear from the Human Resource Director on employee evaluations. At this time, we hear from Mr. Joe Page.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee and the administration. I reported to you on last October regarding our work we were doing on an employee evaluation. I'm here to report to you today that we now have a new system developed, and that system was adopted by the Alexandria Civil Service Commission on January 16th of this year. We have trained 64 supervisors, department heads, and raters on this new system, and that training was completed on December 19th of last year. As reported to you last October, this new system will require all performance evaluation to be done on the employee's anniversary date, and we have worked with information systems to help us develop a program that will flag employees for evaluation on those anniversary dates, and that system is now in place and ready for use. We took in consideration the comments and suggestions from members of the administration, as well as members of the City Council as we developed this program. This new system encourages feedback for our employees on a daily and a monthly basis, in addition to the annual review. According to recent research conducted by Work USA, annual reviews are far more effective when done in the context of informal feedback throughout the year. 30% of employees who were asked whether or not the evaluations were helpful in helping them perform in their duties responded favorably that it did. 65% responded favorably when feedback was done on a daily basis. So we encourage, in addition to the annual review, we encourage our supervisors and raters to have that feedback with those employees on a daily or monthly basis. Our new system is ready now for implementation, and we will make our first run on March 1st of 2008. We see the year 2008 as a year for adjustments and fine-tuning the system. We anticipate that there will be additional changes as we gain more experience in using the system. Our objective is to make this user-friendly as possible so that performance evaluations will be done annually without fail. I'll be glad to entertain any questions if there be any at this time.
Will this performance evaluation be used? One thing you mentioned, the employee's anniversary when it comes down to individual pay raises. I know a lot of times when we give raises, we're giving them across the board. Will this be a factor in employee pay raises, this evaluation report?
It will not, and I explained that when that question came up when we were conducting the training session for our raters. This performance evaluation is not related to, nor is it suggesting that we go to a merit-based merit pay system. About a year ago, I know Councilman Silver asked that question. At this time, this system that we're putting in place now is not based on a merit pay system. But it is a system that where we encourage our employees to improve in their performance. And I think it's important that employees know where they are in terms of the expectations from their supervisors. They also need to be told when they're doing well, and they need to, together with their supervisors, identify areas where they can improve and become more effective employees.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Do you find a lesser or decreasing amount of people who are changing jobs, leaving, as opposed to retaining their jobs as a result of having instituted this monthly and annual and daily, rather, evaluation? Or is attrition as much as it was before?
I don't have that data, Mr. Silva, because we have not yet begun using this system to make that determination. Aside from this program that we're putting in place, there have been some questions raised and some studying going on as it relates to exit interviews, trying to determine why employees are leaving as a way of gaining information for us to use to determine whether or not we need to do some changes in how we do our business.
Any other questions, council members? Thank you, Ms. Page, for your report. If no other business to come before personnel and insurance at this time, this meeting is adjourned. Crutchfield, for the next utility committee. like to call to order at this time the Utility Committee. President on the committee is myself, Mr. Hawes, Mr. Silver, President, members of the administration. Item number 1 is to hear from the administration concerning utility cutoff notices. At this time, Mr. David Crutchfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my understanding that this item was on the agenda to discuss whether or not we still employ the practice of sending out the 10-day disconnect notices, and we do. The city still sends those out every month, the 10-day disconnect notices to, they're computer generated, so, and automatically mailed out. If anyone has an issue with not receiving one, they should let us know at the customer service office. However, that doesn't constitute anything that would mean that we can't still disconnect the service for non-payment of the bill. I mean, if the bill was received and not paid, and the fact that a disconnect notice was lost in the mail or what, for whatever reason wasn't received, I mean, obviously we would work with the customer to try to resolve the situation to their satisfaction, but we still perform. We don't send those by certified mail or any other means. We send them by regular mail, and then we proceed with the cutoffs on the scheduled time.
Yeah, and along with that, there are some concerns in the city community, some areas where over the last 2 months they hadn't received their utility billing on the recent time basis they've been receiving in the past. Is it due to the holiday season?
Well, if anyone hasn't received a bill in a couple of months, we'd appreciate them contacting the customer service office to resolve that, because at some point, if there's a problem with an address or something of that nature, it'll get discovered, and then we'll have a big problem with them having consumed utilities and not paid, which we would have to obviously bill for that entire time period, even if the bill wasn't received. But if someone's bill is just a little bit later this month than normal, that's just due to the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and the recent holiday last Monday, that the folks that review the bills prior to us sending them out were, obviously had holidays and vacation time during the holidays, and we're a little bit behind. We're not behind on meter readings, so the time period for the bill is not out of whack or longer than normal. It's just that the bills haven't been reviewed and mailed out yet. But when they receive the bill, they'll still have the 30 days to pay, and won't reduce that amount of time.
That's through the company, and where we send them to.
No, that's at our office. We review the printouts of exceptions, high and low and zero readings prior to sending the file to Monroe to be printed and mailed.
Are we up to staff on meter readers, or are we still where we should be?
We are fully staffed and on schedule.
Okay. Any other questions come forward to Mr. Crutchfield this time? And I thank you, Mr. Crutchfield.
Thank you.
If nothing else coming before this committee at this time, this meeting is adjourned.
Legal, man. Yeah. Legal committee would come to order. Present on the committee is myself and Mr. Johnson. Also, Mr. Silvers is present. We have 2 items. The first one is to consider final adoption of an ordinance authorizing the mayor to renew existing contracts with Lot R Company for vehicle and equipment fuel. It's book item number 35.
contract for fuel for all city departments. This bid was originally opened Tuesday, January the 30th. The bid is for a 12-month period with an option to renew at existing prices for an additional 2 years. So this is the second year renewal. The way this bid works, the vendors are required to furnish to the motor pool on the day that we place an order for fuel 3 faxed fuel prices from 3 different terminals, the terminals that were originally listed on their bid. At that point, it's up to us to take the lowest of the 3 terminal prices, and to that is added a fixed rate quoted by the vendor, which covers his profit and delivery. So regardless of the fuel cost, our cost to get it here and to pay the vendor is the same during the contract period. The current contract is with Lot Oil Company. The terminal prices they use is Chevron in Opelousas, Citgo in Opelousas, and Exxon in Opelousas. So these prices are submitted to the motor pool for evaluation as to the lowest terminal price that day, and then a purchase order is issued for that load of fuel.
Now, Joe, those prices that they have, those just average, that's just an average price that's in the book here?
Sir, I'm sorry, I don't know what's,
Cost now, you have approximately 4 cents a gallon.
that's fixed. That's what he quoted. That will be his bid, that's his bid price.
That was the low bid from last year. This is just a renewal.
This is,
Same price?
yes, same price.
It was publicly bid last year at this time. It was
And we have
a
an
2-year
option,
contract with a 1-year renewal.
well, 1 year,
1 year
two
with-
2 year renewal. So we have an option to renew again this time next year,
This is this figure plus the cost of fuel.
plus the cost of the fuel.
We're going to get all of it.
The rack price is the dealer cost that day for the fuel. And normally fuel is purchased in tanker loads, which is approximately 8,600 gallons per load.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Yes, sir.
All right. Oh, yeah, I need a,
That's the move.
okay, second. Moved and second, and we refer to the full council. Okay, number 2 is to consider final adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 4 of the Alexandria City Code pertaining to the alcohol beverage control law, book item number 36.
Mr. Hobbs, Ms. Donna Andrews is here to speak on that matter. She's going to give y'all a summary of the proposed changes.
Good afternoon, Councilman Hobbs and members. Our office, in conjunction with the District Attorney's Office, has been working a couple of years on coming up with a uniform alcohol beverage ordinance that the city, the police jury, and the other municipalities that we administer those ordinances on behalf of could adopt, and everyone would be on the same page, so to speak. So with the assistance of the DA, we have come up with this alcohol beverage ordinance where we took the best portions of all the ordinances and put them together to create one really good ordinance. It creates the uniformity, as I just talked about. It incorporates some changes in the state law. Of course, it'll be much easier to administer one ordinance that is the same, or all ordinances that are the same, rather than multiple ordinances that are all different. It also will provide equality for all the applicants within Rapides Parish and the cities. One of the things that does not change, however, and is unique to each ordinance would be the hours of operation, because in some jurisdictions that has been voted on by the electorate and cannot be changed without another vote. So the hours of operation remain the same in each ordinance. What is new to the alcohol beverage ordinance is a caterer's permit which is something that is new to the state statutes, and we've incorporated in there, whereby a caterer would be permitted to move from their location to cater events and handle alcohol at those events. There would be a uniform method to measure the distances between an alcohol beverage establishment and any church, synagogue, school, daycare, those types of establishments. It also removes references to the city's Alcohol Beverage Control Commission. Currently, when we have a violation of an alcohol beverage ordinance, we refer the matter to the state Alcohol Beverage Control Commission, and they enforce those statutes and ordinances on our behalf. And I don't think that this commission has functioned in several years. I know it hasn't since we've been collecting it on behalf of the city. Right. Yes, sir.
I was wondering now.
Does all the information you provided and looking at all the other orders that you combined in this one, does it make it stronger? Does it strengthen it?
I think it does, Mr. Roosevelt. It basically creates some uniform fines and penalties, most of which came from the City of Alexandria's ordinance, and we've strengthened other ordinances based on your ordinance. The city had a very good ordinance. Some of the things that were in the ordinance were a little misplaced, we thought, and so we rearranged some things and moved them around to make it flow a little better. But the main things that we changed were primarily the caterer's permit that we added, and the removal of those references to the city's ATC commission.
You got to stumble when you say that, the commission hadn't, been functioning.
I don't know
Have
if
we
it
had
was...
any violators, within those last?
Well, you have violators. One of the things that is a violation is if they're behind on their sales tax. If they become delinquent on their sales tax and they are an alcohol beverage applicant holder or license holder, then we can send a letter to the state's commission asking that their establishment or their license be pulled until they become current.
Right.
But with regard to selling to minors and things like that, we're not enforcement, we're simply administration, and so we don't get involved with that. But if they do have a violation, their license can be revoked for up to 2 years.
Any other questions?
No other questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs.
I need a motion.
I so move.
Second. Okay, we refer it to the full council. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the city of Alexandria to file and defend litigation concerning a contract for fiber optic cable installation and related matters concerning claim by and against the city of Alexandria versus Anrich Inc. and Richard Heath, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Hobbs, if you need, I can tell you a little bit
Okay.
about that. We had a fiber optics installation contract with these individuals. The Information Systems Department determined that the city was overbilled. We estimated an amount of about $100,000, and we asking for the council's permission to prosecute that suit and recover whatever overbillings were charged to the city.
Is that in-house attorney?
Yes, yes.
I so move.
Any other business, Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, I have a resolution, and it's a resolution authorizing the administration to take actions
on the condemnation of dangerous, glorious commercial structures or property. Whereas dangerous, unsafe, unsanitary commercial structures and properties in the city of Alexandria are recognized as a public hazard. This resolution will give the mayor and administration the authority to deal with these commercial structures. As you know, we've been sitting there waiting. We got a lot of commercial properties that they're not doing anything with, they're just sitting there. And we didn't have any place, so we're giving the mayor and administration to take whatever action necessary and write these owners that don't want to do anything, then I can put down, there'd be further orders that in the event the owner, agents, or other representatives of the owners fail to demolish or remove the structure within the required time, said demolition, and removal shall be undertaken by the city of Alexandria, and an assessed cost will be assessed against such commercial structures or property upon which the building is situated in all accordance with the provision of the Louisiana Revised Statute 33-4765 and 4766, the Code of Law, City of Alexandria and related building code. We have a lot of commercial structures that we can't touch, so we're giving the administration and the power to go in and deal with these structures. As you go up Rapides Avenue, you see a lot of them on the right. They falling down. People won't do anything. It's just an eyesore. If you go down Little Third, you look on the left side. The neighbors down there have called me. We got an old church, an old store. We got one on Willie Glen. All you see is 9 and half 10. And we got a lot of buildings around there, and we don't have nothing in place to do something with these commercial structures. We're giving the administration the power to go in there, write them. If they don't do nothing, we're going to tear them down and assess them. And if they want to, let them take us to court or whatever they want to do. So that's the direction. I mean, we're just tired of looking at them. And the people are tired of looking at them. They won't do anything on these commercial structures. We deal with demolition on homes and things like that. They have anything in place. So that's what we're doing. And we're hoping that that you all will move forward in dealing with these commercial structures. Gibbs, you want to say anything on this?
No, that's fine.
Here's a
Copy.
Okay. Need a motion.
Also moved.
Been moved and second, we refer to the full council. The other business to come before legal. If not, this meeting is adjourned.
With your permission, we'll continue right on with the A&E selection. Those are Mr. Hobbs, Mr. Johnson, myself. We have Mr. Smith here, and we have Mr. Fowler. First order is to hear from the administration concerning the development and progress around the issues of Ruston Foundry that's been ongoing for some time. I think we're trying to have a resolution. Are you going to handle it?
Yes, sir, I'm going to.
All right. You better state your name, position, and get near that gate there.
Mr. Silver, Trey Gist for the legal department. I think everyone knows. And I think I've been asked just to give an update on where we currently are on Ruston Foundry. Is that correct?
Correct.
We were advised by the Kansas City Southern Railroad, which is a participant with the United States Environmental Protection Agency in a consent decree that deals with the old Ruston Foundry site, that the federal court had executed a consent decree between the railroad and the Environmental Protection Agency about 10 days ago. That consent decree does not involve directly the city of Alexandria, although of course it involves property located in the cities and is of interest to the citizens. We were advised by the railroad that there are certain immediate deadlines, Mr. Silver. For instance, they are to provide the Environmental Protection Agency within, I think, 30-day period from 2 weeks ago, so about 2 weeks from now, with their completed plan for operation, which we will be notified of by the Environmental Protection Agency. The Environmental Protection Agency the EPA, Environmental Protection Administration, is scheduling a public hearing in Alexandria with some of the concerned citizens that Mr. Smith and you each have a handout on. I believe that's scheduled for the evening of February the 11th.
At 6 o'clock.
At 6 o'clock. And it will involve some demonstration by agency representatives from Dallas, Texas, and I'm sure some of the people from the railroad that will answer many of the questions the citizens have. I do want to stress that the city is not involved directly in this. We are not the party responsible for the cleanup. However, the city for the last several years has been actively involved, Mr. Silver, in coordinating these efforts, making some suggestions. We have been working with the railroad to allow some of these activities to go forward as soon as possible. We're optimistic that we will be able to continue to work with the railroad. There's some property out there that will be affected. The old Ruston site, foundry site itself, will be cleaned up by the railroad in due diligence, but it will take some time. Some of the materials will be sent off the site through railroad cars. Perhaps other methods will be utilized by the railroad and its contractors, but the city administration and the council intend to become aware of those details, and hopefully we will be able to keep the public informed. That's the information that we do have.
Taking a step beyond that, once we have this thing, is this supposed to be deeded to the city and then work for improvement, or what's the ultimate objective?
That's a good question, because during since around 2003, the city has been engaged in some discussions with the railroad. The railroad has an interest. They used to own part of the Ruston Foundry site, Mr. Silver, and they leased to the old Ruston Foundry from around 1927 to 1975 a strip down their old railroad. That's the reason they got brought into this Superfund site by the federal government. They are interested in going forward with their cleanup, and they have offered to the city an adjoining tract that the railroad owns through one of their railroad companies. It's around 30 acres. The administration at this time is conducting due diligence. We're going to have some people look at that site. That site is not the Superfund site, I will point out, but we want to look at it. The railroad is interested in donating to the city that tract. It's an important potential track that could be utilized. The railroad has indicated to us that they may, for instance, be constructing a road over their 30-acre tract. We'd be interested in knowing exactly where the road would be constructed, the method of construction of the road. It's pretty complicated. Also, we have engaged the services of Shaw Environmental Company to conduct a phase 1 inspection of that 30-acre site, and that's been the subject of some previous ordinances. By doing a due diligence, we hope to assure the city that there is no problem with that 30-acre site, at which point, if there is no problem and the adjoining 6-acre site is cleaned up, we would anticipate the city receiving by a donation from the railroad the 30-acre site. I would point out the 30-acre site is not part of the Superfund location, and it's not supposed to have anything deleterious with it at this point. But it would be a very, very important piece of property for the city to have from an economic standpoint. There are some concerns that we have because of the immediate deadlines the railroad is facing, and the really bunch of work that we're having to do on this. There's been some suggestion from our engineering department that perhaps an outside engineering firm that had some expertise in these matters that pertain to environmental concerns might be really better suited than our current engineer staff, which is pretty taxed with our fast track, Mr. Silver. And I think the administration and some of the council members have discussed the potential for considering retention of an outside engineering firm to go forward right now so that we have some expertise assisting us during this process.
Any questions you want to direct to the administration or to Mr. Gist? Anybody in the audience?
No, we had asked the administration to look at, we have an A&E selection and get us an engineer to go over there because they're thinking about if they're going to build a road in there, we would like to see that that road would, how that road would be constructed and which way that when we're finished with that not only the 6 acres but the other 30 acres that they plan to give us, that we can make use of that road, and what other things that we need to do over there and give us overall picture of development, if we can make that as an economic development piece, because it's right on the part of it's out on I-49, so it's 30 acres. We want to go to the package, but we was in Washington, D.C. We also asked the Villa, Alexandria, and Mary Landry, and we talked to all of these, the mayor, and we talked to them besides, Superfund site and their funding, what, some of the earmarked money, what could they give us to help us develop, some money to help develop that area, that we could really be right on top of it when they finish and we get all the legal work handling that part, that we can start developing that land, so we could get, and so they told us they would look into it. They got some earmarked money, but they might also conceive that other grants that we can get besides what the Superfund grants.
And Mr. Smith and Mr. Silver, I could point out that it was the original intent of the former administration under Mayor Randolph to also go forward and apply for any available funding, particularly funding that would be available because of the Superfund sites. Mr. Fowler.
I have some concern about not the 30 acres that are outside of the Superfund site, but the Superfund site itself. Science has improved over the years. When we did water testing years and years ago, they tested parts per thousand, and then parts per 100,000, then parts per million. And what is if we do take possession of that site, what are we going to do to ensure the protection of the city, not to be saddled with the same thing that the railroad ended up being saddled with? When the testing becomes where they're doing one part per